Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. This is episode number 144, dedicated to a man who just announced his retirement from broadcasting, one of the best broadcasting voices in the game, who was also the voice of the NHL, Mr. Mike Doc Emmerich. And as always, thank you for listening and downloading to another episode of the podcast. On today's episode, we talk a little bit about Nick Saban's encounter with COVID-19. Daryl Morey decides to step away from his position with the Houston Rockets. And Joe Buck is going to have a very busy week. But first, college football is in week 8. Week 9, if you technically want to count week 0. However, there are some conferences that have not played yet, and one of them starts play this weekend. The Big Ten Conference. Donald Trump stepped in. COVID stepped in. Kevin Warren reared up his ugly head. Had everybody upset. Everybody confused. Everybody asking questions and not getting answers to said questions. Forget it. Forget everything that just happened. Forget all of it. The Big Ten starts play this weekend. If you're a college football fan like me, you have enjoyed college football this season. However, there are a few things that are different. The one that sticks out to me the most is Pac-12 After Dark is not a thing. Normally, I go to bed at the conclusion or towards the end of the late game on ABC, which I am very glad. They moved the kickoff up. They moved the time up, the TV slot up from 8 until 7:30. However, we all know kickoff is not until 15 minutes after the broadcast starts there on ABC. But I'm very glad that is not a thing anymore. Because at 7:45 kick, it allows me to go to bed at a normal time. Well, it used to be. Nowadays, I'm staying up later. Not sure why. Not sure if it's effective COVID-19 and how it's affected me and how I stay up later nowadays than normal. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's me being healthier and trying to drink more H2O, eat some more of that fish, and eat some more of those green beans and broccoli. I don't know what it is. But I'm staying up later, as well as missing Pac-12 After Dark. Another thing that sticks out is no Big Ten football. And normally at 12 o'clock, I have a Purdue, I have an Indiana, I have an Iowa, maybe Michigan State. I have one of those schools to play to feel my desire to watch college football, the Midwestern variety, which is where I have spent most of my life. I ain't trying to watch no Kansas and West Virginia. I ain't trying to watch Texas A&M. No, I don't want to watch that. My heart has been in the Midwest. My love for the Big Ten is bigger than any other conference in the country. With the Big Ten coming back, not only does it assist me and allow my Ohio State fandom to come out and be spewed all over my Twitter timeline throughout the games and throughout the week. However, it does assist me in allowing to be and allows me to be able to watch games that I love every single week. Watch teams that I love every single week. You have Ohio State hosting Nebraska this weekend. Rutgers goes on the road to Michigan State. Penn State goes on the road to Indiana. Iowa plays at Purdue. Michigan versus Minnesota. I have a quick tidbit about that one before we wrap up this first segment of the show. Michigan number 18, Minnesota number 21, and then Maryland at Northwestern. This week is going to be huge, very, very big, because the games are back. The Big Ten football is back. This is probably a bigger deal to many than not having Pac-12, USC, or Oregon, or Oregon State, or Colorado. Big Ten coming back. It's great for college football. It's great for those of us that live in the Midwest. And it's great for those kids that are allowed to play football, a game that they love, with their coaches on the sideline and with their boys on the field. This tweet came a little bit before me recording. This episode is coming out a little bit later than normal. I was not feeling well on Sunday, so I'm doing all the recording of all of my shows that normally come out on Monday, doing that Monday morning. So this tweet came from Brad Powers on Twitter. His Twitter bio says he's a former college football NFL analyst with Pregame and Phil Still. So he's plugged in. He knows people. He knows things. He's a researcher. And in his tweet, he says this: number 18 Michigan is at number 21 Minnesota this week. Currently, Michigan is a 2-point favorite. Did you know that since 2006, Michigan is 1-20 on the road versus ranked teams, losing by an average of 15 points per game and 6 for 15 against the spread, failing to cover by 8 points per game. Literally, Michigan on road versus ranked opponents. 2006, they were at number 1 Ohio State, lost the game 39-42. 2009, I'm skipping around in years. 2009 at number 12 Iowa, lost the game 28-30. 2012 at number 11 Notre Dame, lost the game 6-13. 2014 at number 8 Michigan State, lost the game 11-35. 2017 at number 5 Wisconsin, 10-24. Last year at number 13 Wisconsin, lost 14-35. Last year at number 7 Penn State, 21-28. My Ohio State fandom loves seeing this. I believe that Mr. Row the boat. I'm picking this game on Friday. I'll give it a little nugget today. Rowed the boat. Minnesota, even before this stat, it's on my calendar. I have them winning this game this weekend. The team up north, Jim Harbaugh. Many people say he's not on the hot seat. I don't think he should be, but however, he may be, because if he's not winning these games, they got to find somebody else that will. Let's go ahead and take a trip to Nick Saban's home. I don't know the address, so don't ask me, but let's go down to his home. Because, guys, he had a positive test, and it seemed like everybody in college football was wondering, would he or would he not be on the sidelines against Georgia this past weekend? Leading up until a big matchup in college football, normally the conversation that you hear goes something like this. Will Mac Jones lead Alabama's offense and the team to beat Georgia on Saturday, and will he put his name or cement his name in the Heisman Trophy conversation? I got another one for you. Will we finally see JT Daniels quarterback the Georgia Bulldogs, or will Stetson Bennett IV, also known as the mailman, do what's needed to lead that Georgia football team to beat the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa? That wasn't it. I heard a little bit of it. I didn't hear anything about Bryce Young. No, before the season, Bryce Young may play. Please, Mac Jones is a starter. Mac Jones is the guy. We saw it last year. We see it this year. He is good enough to be a starter, and he's playing way better than expected. All the talk going up until this game was, will Nick Saban coach? That was it. That took up most of the conversation. Will Nick Saban be on the sidelines? And we all know Nick Saban on the sidelines is way different than Nick Saban not coaching on the sidelines. My goodness, guys. It sure seemed like this game, Saturday evening, we were going to get a doozy because Nick Saban wasn't going to be there. A positive test on Wednesday, a negative test Thursday, a negative test Friday, and then lo and behold, a negative test on Saturday, a false positive test. That was the ruling of the initial test, and Nick Saban coached in the game. I had no idea the SEC had this rule. I wonder if other conferences have the same rule, but it hasn't been exposed or put on front street because, well, they haven't been exercising or they have not been performing those daily tests. We all know in the SEC, things are different. I'm not going to say it means more. I'll just say they're different. No, I'll say it. I will say it. To many, if you look at the bulk of the SEC, those football teams there, the fan bases, the teams, the players, and you look at teams in the Big Ten, or you look at teams in the ACC, or the Big 12, or even the Pac-12. So sorry. Those of you on the West Coast, I don't know why I'm looking to my left right now, like I'm looking at a map, but those of you on the West Coast, well, I don't mean to ignore you, but we all know when it comes to football, for some reason, outside of USC and Oregon, many people believe football does not mean as much to Pac-12 country as it does to ACC or Big Ten or SEC or Big 12 country. Not me. I know what I understand what you guys stand for. I understand what you guys believe about football, about your approach to football. But many people out there, they believe that y'all are irrelevant. I do not. I am looking forward to the first matchup of the Pac-12 season, where it's Arizona State at USC on Fox. Just got announced that my guy Gus and Joel will be on the call of that game. Yes, I understand the thoughts and the approach to a 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time kickoff, which, hey, down the road, little tidbit, little teaser, I'll be talking about that week, the week 1 of the Pac-12 season, that 9 a.m. kick. I'll be talking about that one for longer than a couple seconds. But in the SEC, it seems like things just mean more. Big Ten football just came out that at Ohio Stadium, only 1,600 people will be allowed in the stadium. That's total. That's not just fans. That is teams, that is coaches, that is medical staff, that is stadium staff, that is the fans from each school. 656 tickets will be given to Ohio State player and coaches. The guests that they bring along, that goes to them. For those that Nebraska fans that are coming from Nebraska to Columbus, only 400 tickets will be given to the Cornhusker players and coaches, the guests that they invite. You watch an Alabama game, a Georgia game, a South Carolina game, an Auburn game. Watch some of these games. 15, 18, 20, 25,000 people in the stadium. I haven't heard much about any cluster or anything along those lines where, we're having thousands of people that attended the Alabama-Georgia game come down with the Rona. Now, I will say this is early. This is coming out late Monday, early on Tuesday due to some physical things going on with me. So no matter when you hear this, you may hear this and say, there were some positive tests. There were some positives that came from the game. But by and large, NFL, college, high school football locally, for those of you that have gone to games like myself in your local area where you can go, I have not heard of many or any, I won't say they're out there, I haven't heard of any positive COVID-19 cases that could be pointed back to or that come from people that attended sporting events this year. We all remember early on in the college school year, we heard about people that were testing positive for the Rona almost like crazy, like at a crazy rate. 26, 30, 35, 40,000 people that were testing positive for COVID-19, and I believe it came down to 3. Now, these are students, not those that are players, but you get the gist. There were 3 hospitalizations, I believe, out of one report that I saw. So if you have 40,000 positives of one, then all of a sudden you have 3 hospitalizations, 0 deaths. That's not a bad ratio. We all know people are going to test positive for the Rona. I mean, it's out there. Coronavirus, COVID-19, 2 separate things. Unfortunately, the test that is being administered picks up both of them. So you could literally have the coronavirus or a cold, and you could test positive for COVID-19, 14-day quarantine. That's it, unless you're part of the SEC and that false positive can be tested for. Indianapolis Colts just has 4 positive cases. All came back. Those are negative. And I believe that there was 1 positive test, and then they administered 4 more tests to those 4 individuals that tested positive, and that came back as a negative. So a false positive was announced, and then they reopened the facility. The game was played on Sunday, and the Colts squeaked by the Bengals in a 31-27 win on Sunday afternoon. I wonder what other conferences have this same rule that the SEC has. I wonder, here, this is me and my wild brain, I wonder what other conferences have said rule and have not gone about testing the extra testing of the person that tests positive out of fear of coming in contact with somebody that has COVID-19. I'm not trying to make light of the situation, but is it weird to you, because it is to me, that in SEC country, Alabama, one of the top 2 teams that has played so far this season. I have thoughts about Ohio State. Save those for another day. In Oregon as well, but right now it seems like Alabama and Clemson are the top dogs in the country. Clemson being number 1. You got Trevor Lawrence. You got those guys on the offense and defense, those dogs that Dabo keeps bringing in. Yeah, you're going to be number 1 in the country. But it surely seems odd that the first time this has been brought to my attention, maybe it's been brought to your attention, that this rule is out there in the SEC, it comes up at the same time period that Alabama plays Georgia. It also seems very, very odd and strange. The first positive test came down on Wednesday, and then you can expose a rule, not a loophole, a rule there in the SEC health and safety protocol that if you have 3 negative tests on 3 consecutive days, the first initial test is ruled a false positive, and the individual can leave self-isolation and go back to doing the things that they have been doing. Very, very strange. And as Dan Dockich put out on Twitter after it was announced that Nick Saban would be able to coach on the sidelines. He's not a player anymore. Be able to coach on the sidelines. He said, I wonder how many false positives have been out there that the person has not been able to or not gone after. I'll say this. Not been able to seek out another test or multiple tests to see if that first initial positive was truly a negative so they can go about living their lives in the way that they can during that time period in their life. I'm curious. You may or may not be curious. I just wonder if that is true, that false positives are a thing, and if this medical safety protocol rule that the SEC has, if it can truly be implemented in every walk of life. I'll close out with this. Think about all the money that has been utilized so far this year simply on testing. I won't even talk about the hospitalizations, the money that hospitals have been paid for COVID-19 recording. Leave that alone. I won't even talk about all that. I'll simply talk about all the money that has been out there, that has been utilized, spent on all of the COVID-19 testing. Think about if you could utilize that same testing or just a little bit more money, or ask the individual, hey, I know you had a positive test, but if you want to retest, pay $20. We will retest you. You have to pay for the second test to see if that first initial test was truly accurate. Think about all of the extra money that could have been utilized. Say, hey, don't utilize your $20. We will pay for another test if you test positive and are showing no symptoms to see if that first initial test was truly a positive test. Think about it. I'm not saying that's the best way to go. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not anything like that. All I am saying is, if the SEC and their medical doctors have put this in place during their health and safety protocols for the SEC throughout the athletic season, what if the average or the everyday American had the same rule and had the same outcome? If you, put some more money out, test positive, take another test. If you're negative, go about life. Take another test. You're positive again, 14-day self-isolation, or continue that self-isolation that you have already started. Whatever it is, just think about it. I'm not saying it's a way to go about doing things, but if Nick Saban can do it, if they found a way to test Nick Saban, I said one day, they tested that man the next 3 days. Test him the next 3 days consecutively, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He came back, negative. False positive was the ruling of the first test. He's back on the sidelines. If Nick Saban can get that treatment and get extra testing to prove that the first initial test was a false positive, why can't we? The more I think about Daryl Morey no longer being a part of the Houston Rockets, being the GM of the Houston Rockets, one thing sticks out in my mind. He could not have made this decision at a better time. With the uncertainty, and I say that not like in the COVID-19 sense, but literally the uncertainty and not knowing about when the next season will start, he gets a jump start on finding another job. May it be the NBA or another sport. He also allows the Rockets ample time to find a replacement and to allow said replacement to hire the right head coach for this team. So for all the heat, everything he was said bad about Daryl Morey, and I apologize, I did not back away from my microphone when I went a little loud about 5 seconds ago. But for everything people have said about Daryl Morey, you got to give him credit. Hey, if I want to stay in the NBA and be a GM of another team, this is a time to do it. This is the time to back away, step away, get away from that job so I can get another one. Daryl Morey stepping away from the Rockets, I think this could be a blessing. It could be a great thing for the Rockets because ever since he's been there, they have been close. Not close enough. They have been almost there, but never gotten over that hump. You can say, oh, they've been to a Game 7 day. They have been close. You're right. They have been close. They haven't got to the finals. The goal was never to just get to the finals. The goal was to always win a championship. But when you can't get into the step needed to be able to win a championship, you're an issue. You can fire coaches. You can bring in different players. You could even trade Clint Capella, which I still think that was very, very, very dumb. You're going to have P.J. Tucker Garden, Anthony Davis. Come on, man. I know. All right. Let me calm down. Daryl Morey is not the coach. I understand that. The coach was D'Antoni. I don't trust D'Antoni to make the proper adjustments, the proper calls defensively. However, you got to help the head coach with the decisions that he makes by putting proper players on the court that will assist him. Now, we all know Mike D'Antoni loves small ball, loves all those things. That is true. However, it's the NBA. We all know height is important. Height is huge. So you're going to try and go out and win a game with a 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", being your tallest player in the starting lineup. Let's use our brains for a little bit. One thing you know about high school basketball, the tallest player sometimes is 6'4" or 6'5", playing center. That's high school. There's not enough tall men to be passed around. You know about college? The height goes a little bit up, or average for every team. NFL, wrong sport. I'm watching NFL right now. NBA, oh, come on, baby. You know, 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot. If you get a 7'2", 7'3" guy, that's amazing, that's tall, that can play multiple positions or positionless basketball like we love right now in this brand of NBA, you want that. You can't trade away Clint Capella, especially when him and James Harden play so well together. You did it, made a bad decision. Not another finals appearance that wasn't had, and you're gone. And with him being gone, and with me looking at who is a possibility to be the next head coach of the Houston Rockets, it's a retread, but this retread is a former head coach of the Rockets, and this gentleman, I don't believe firmly likes the style that the Rockets currently have with their players. Doesn't like the lack of height that the Rockets have with their players. It doesn't really like the personality of some of the players there on the Houston Rockets. So, if you think about that with Daryl Morey, with the team that Daryl Morey has put together to be the GM of the team, you think that, well, maybe there was an ultimatum put out by a guy named Jeff Van Gundy. Now, I'm not saying this is true, but if it is, I'd understand. Jeff Van Gundy leaving ESPN, number one team there, him, Mike Breen, Mark Jackson. I'm not a big fan of the three-man booth, but they do a good job, an okay job together. They're not my favorite call or listen to on NBA basketball. I love Mike Breen, but those three together, it's an acquired taste, and not the taste that I have acquired. Don't believe I will ever acquire said taste. But it has been noted, has been reported that Jeff Van Gundy may leave the broadcasting booth or table. It's not really a booth, it's a table in the NBA. May not call basketball games anymore for ESPN, to come out of calling games, broadcasting games, to go back into coaching and be the next head coach of the Houston Rockets. Well, that brought something very interesting to me. Daryl Morey got the job with the Houston Rockets the very season after Jeff Van Gundy was no longer the head coach of said team. So Jeff Van Gundy leaves as the head coach. Daryl Morey comes in as a GM, and he has some good coaches. Nothing great. A couple good coaches. Rick Adelman came in after Jeff Van Gundy, and then Kevin McHale, then J.B. Bickerstaff, and then Mike D'Antoni. All guys that in NBA circles are well respected, and guys that were good coaches, okay coaches, some at some point in time. If Jeff Van Gundy comes back in to coach, does it really make sense for Daryl Morey to be there? To me, it doesn't at all. I think there'll be a clash of personalities. a clash of styles, a clash of, hey, you give me what I want, Jeff Van Gundy speaking. Hey, no, Jeff, you sit down. You go back to ESPN if you want to, but if you're going to be here as the head coach, I'm going to build the team the way I want to build the team. We will not be on the same page. We will not do things the same. Why? Because I am in charge. Remember remember Jeff, Daryl speaking, I hired you. And when I hired you, I am in charge of everything that goes on here with the franchise. Jeff Van Gundy's like, hold on, buddy, hold on, time out. Let's call a TO and go back to talking and putting out a plan to make this thing successful. So I'm the head coach. You want me to be the head coach, and you want me to coach a team with my scheme, my approach, my philosophy, but you and I are not going to be on the same page? Whoa. How is that going to work out? Think about a GM hiring somebody under him for them to work together, but the GM hiring somebody that's not on the same page as him. Does it really make sense? Not at all. Now, I'm not saying Jeff Van Gundy is going to be the next head coach of the Rockets. I truly think a retread is a horrible idea. You know the word retread. You don't talk about retread, right? Well, Mike D'Antoni, retread, NBA journeyman as a head coach, all over the place. He's everywhere. Been there, done that. Phoenix, New York, Houston. I mean, he's a retread. He's been at a few places. Has he won anything? No. Has his style changed? No. What was the best time? What were some of the best teams that he had when he coached? Some will say one of those years with Phoenix, some they had Steve Nash and Amari. Some will say 1 year with Houston where he had James Harden and whoever else he had right now. They're not sure. You're not sure why. It's the same thing over and over again. 7 seconds or less, and he's more of a three and D now, 3-point shot and layup guy now than he used to be. I mean, those Suns teams were fun to watch play basketball. Can't really say the same thing about the Houston Rockets. Houston, you got a problem. You want Jeff Van Gundy back? You're asking for the same thing over again. And I don't think Houston Rockets fans want that at all. Guys, move away from basketball. Well, not really basketball. Move away from basketball. Forgot I had the wrong graphic up. Moving away from basketball to discussing Joe Buck. A gentleman, when you hear his name, you either think of his dad. Some of you old-timers think about his dad. Some of you younger guys like myself, you think about football or baseball. And you may say, Joe Buck is trash. Joe Buck is horrible. I can't stand his voice. I can't stand anything he does. He's a homer. He doesn't broadcast for my team the way that I think he should. Joe Buck is annoying. Joe Buck. I can't stand him. All right, y'all. All right. Some of y'all are like that. Me personally, I love Joe Buck. I really, really, really enjoy games that Joe Buck is broadcasting. I am looking forward to shutting this episode down and getting to the game he's calling right now, the Chiefs and the Bills on Monday night. Yes, I'm recording this a little bit later in the day than normal. So I'm looking forward to listening to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman call this game. Why? They're very good together. Well, this week for Joe Buck is very, very busy, and part of me wishes that other networks would do the same thing Fox is doing right now with Joe Buck. Don't have somebody else come up if that workload gets a little bit heavier and you need someone else to call a game so your number one guy could be doing something else. No. Every now and then, it would be fine. It'd be perfectly fine to me sometimes if it's okay to that individual that they call multiple stuff in a week. I say multiple games of different leagues in a week. Tonight, right now, yesterday. It all started yesterday. He has 7 games, Joe Buck has 7 games in 7 days. On the 18th, Packers at the Buccaneers. Already over. Buccaneers won that one. Everyone's talking about Aaron Rodgers' hip thrust and how, well, after he did that, it was a 38-point swing and the Packers lost. Well, tonight, right now, Chiefs at the Bills calling that game. And then the 20th and 21st, he is calling Game 1 and Game 2 of the World Series. On the 22nd, he is calling the Giants at the Eagles. That is on Thursday. And then on Friday and Saturday, he is calling Game 3 and Game 4 of the World Series as well. As a gentleman, as a guy, yes, that is what I am. As someone that hosts multiple shows, multiple podcasts, not just this one, Locked On Buckeyes, and then also the Full Press Codes podcast, that as well. I am learning, the more you're doing, the more shows you have, preparation is key to make them be the best that they can be. It is enjoyable that Joe Buck is broadcasting for the 7 games that Joe Buck is broadcasting over this 7-game span. He is also going to be calling 4 games between 2 of the same teams in the World Series, 20th and 21st in the same location, 23rd and 24th in the same location. So it's no traveling between those days. But Sunday, he was in Tampa. Monday, right now, he is in Buffalo. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, I looked down at my dates. Tuesday and Wednesday, he is in Texas for the World Series. He flies to Philadelphia on the 22nd for the Giants at the Eagles on Thursday night. Goes back to Texas on the 3rd and for Game 3 and 4, 23rd and 24th of the World Series. Preparation is key. You're not just having to formulate different game plans different depth charts and keep up to date with what teams are doing, especially with COVID-19 protocol, safety, who has it, who does not, keep your stats up to date and all the things like that. But you're calling the World Series. You're going to get eyeballs on this series, more eyeballs here than any other game that's been played throughout this shortened baseball season. Joe Buck knows that, and Fox knows. If Joe Buck was not up to the task, and if he was not a caliber broadcaster that they believe is able to do this task, they would have called somebody else, either Joe Davis. I don't think Adam Amin has enough appeal there in Fox. He hasn't been there long enough for Fox to call him to call these games. He may call Joe Davis and say, "Hey, Joe Davis, that is. You just call some baseball games in the ALCS or NLCS. I forget what he called, but you call some of those games. You need to come out here and call some of these because we can't have Joe Buck do all this stuff." Joe Buck may say yes, but Fox and his bosses may say no, we don't want you to do that. There are broadcasters out there, I would not say names, I don't know all of them, but there are broadcasters out there that would not do this at all. They may be married, the kids may be out of the house, they may not have any family obligations that would hold them and keep them from doing a broadcast string of games in this many days, consecutive days like this. They don't want to do it. Too much preparation, too much travel, and the uncertainty about what's going to happen with them. Will they be able to be at the game on time? They don't want to do it. I got to commend Joe Buck. I think he's up for it. I think he's good for it. And I believe he is the man for the job. And I believe, contrary to popular belief, Joe Buck, to me, is one of the best broadcasters out there. You may not like his style, but you got to give it to him. He brings his A game every broadcast. Thank you for listening to the episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can send all of your emails to jstevenspod@gmail.com. Remember to always subscribe, rate, review. It's a great way for people that are searching for new podcasts to listen to come across this one. Then remember to always get the word out about the podcast via word of mouth. The things that we enjoy in life, we are more willing and somewhat wired to tell other people about. So no matter if this was your first episode or if you have been listening since episode number 1, be sure to let people know about the podcast. This has been episode 144 of the Jay Stevens Podcast. I'll see you next time.